Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer lecture. Whether you're a first-year bachelor student just starting out or a returning anthropology major, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. Today we are going to explore a really fascinating intersection. We're looking at how human biology, culture, and society deeply, completely intertwine to shape our lived experiences. We aren't just looking at the body as some biological machine today, right? Instead, we're going to unpack how the societies we live in actually dictate how we feel, how we cope, and ultimately, how we survive. Okay, so right off the bat, let's dive into a massive, fundamental question that I want you all to really reflect on. What does it actually mean to be healthy? Seriously, think about it. Is health simply a biological state? Just the physical reality of a body that happens to be free of germs? Or is it more of a cultural construct, heavily influenced by our beliefs, our languages, and our environments? Well, as we'll see, different populations across the globe answer this question in vastly different ways. What's really interesting is how global policy eventually had to play catch up to what a lot of cultures have literally known for centuries. Just look at the 1998 World Health Organization definition. The language completely shifted. It moved away from viewing health as just this baseline absence of illness to defining it as a holistic ecosystem of human well-being. It includes the physical, sure, but also the mental, the social, and crucially, the spiritual. It's a dynamic state. It's constantly moving and adjusting. All right, here's our roadmap for today's lecture. We'll be covering defining health across cultures, Western versus Eastern paradigms, the biopsychosocial organism, adaptations to stress, and finally, cultural tools for resilience. Let's jump right into Section 1, Defining Health Across Cultures. Language is a brilliant tool to show us exactly how a culture views the human body. A perfect example of this is the traditional anthropological perspective. In Sanskrit, the word for health is swasta. Now look at the etymology here because it's fascinating. Swa means inner self, and stha means conscious. So in this specific cultural framework, being healthy means being highly conscious of your inner self and finding internal harmony. It places the center of health inside the individual's spiritual and mental alignment. It's totally different from just viewing health as a battle against external germs and pathogens, right? To really break this down academically, and you'll definitely want to remember this distinction, a doctor treats a disease. That's the biological abnormality, the actual bug or pathogen. But you, the individual, you experience an illness. That's your subjective feeling of pain or being tired or just feeling off. Sickness, however, that is entirely anthropological. Society dictates your sickness role. It involves the expectations placed on you, like whether you're allowed to take time off work or any social stigma attached to what you're going through. Moving right along to Section 2, Western versus Eastern medical paradigms. Let's examine the fascinating divergence in how different societies historically built their ideas of the human body and medical intervention. When we trace these historical frameworks, we see this incredible, sweeping evolution. Way back in the 5th century BC, the Greek physician Hippocrates actually viewed health quite holistically. He focused heavily on the harmonious functioning of organs alongside environmental factors. But fast forward to the 17th century in Western Europe, and René Descartes establishes mind-body dualism during the scientific revolution. He rigidly separated the physical body from the mind. It literally took until 1977 for modern science to attempt a reunion, which is when George Engel proposed the biopsychosocial model, pushing back hard against that rigid separation. This visual dichotomy really nails the two major approaches. On the one side, the biomedical model, which is heavily influenced by Descartes, is a reductionist approach. It treats the body basically like a complex machine that needs a quick fix when an external pathogen invades. On the flip side, the Eastern holistic model views the body as an integrative ecosystem. Here, getting sick is seen as a manifestation of disharmony between the mind, body, and spirit, which places a massive focus on personal self-responsibility and inner balance. So, Section 3. The biopsychosocial organism. Building on Engel's revolutionary theory from 1977, let's look at how modern health psychology actually tries to bridge this massive cultural divide. Take a look at John Travis's 1972 health-illness continuum. What's absolutely fascinating here is that it proves health is not some static finish line you just cross and stay at forever. It fluctuates. Every single day. We are in constant dynamic movement along this line, maybe drifting toward premature death through negative habits, or actively moving toward high-level wellness through awareness and growth. And because our health changes daily, our behavioral adaptations become absolutely crucial for survival. We can essentially break this active daily process down into 3 domains: restoration, maintenance, and growth. The big takeaway? A truly healthy society doesn't just stop at restoration, which is literally just curing a disease and getting you back to a neutral zero baseline. A healthy society actively promotes behavioral maintenance, things like diet and exercise, and ultimately strives for growth, which means achieving your highest potential physically, socially, and spiritually. All right, let's pivot to Section 4, Human Adaptations to Stress. We need to look at a major disruptor of that health continuum and understand how human populations universally respond to environmental and social pressures. Cross-cultural studies show we basically rely on two main behavioral strategies to survive stress. Problem-focused coping is when you take direct action to modify or attack the root stressor, like pulling an all-nighter to study for a huge exam. But when the environment is completely unyielding, say dealing with the loss of a loved one, we shift to emotion-focused coping. This isn't about changing the external world, because we can't. It's about regulating our internal emotional response and reframing our thoughts just to endure the hardship. Now watch how this builds into what psychologists call proactive coping. This maps out human survival adaptation not just as some random panic reaction, but as a highly structured, almost scientific process. We accumulate resources, we anticipate the threat, we appraise the danger, we deploy preliminary efforts to deal with it, and then we seek feedback to see if we survived successfully. Honestly, it's an incredible display of cognitive evolution. And that brings us to Section 5, Cultural Tools for Resilience. For our final section, let's explore the specific technologies that diverse cultures have developed over millennia to regulate the nervous system and manage these chronic stressors. First up is yoga. Anthropologically speaking, yoga is not just a gym workout or some modern fitness fad. It's a deeply ancient Indian cultural toolkit, specifically designed to biologically unite the mind and body. Remember that concept of swasta we discussed earlier? Well, yoga is the applied methodology to actually reach that state of inner consciousness and self-realization. This comprehensive system really illustrates how holistic practices engage multiple layers of the human experience. True cultural resilience requires way more than just stretching. It incorporates karma, meaning your daily actions, bhakti, your sense of devotion or connection, jnana, your intellect and pursuit of knowledge, and ashtang, the physical power and movement. It's the whole shebang, a complete system for maintaining biopsychosocial balance. Similarly, we've got mindfulness. Popularized in modern Western medicine by folks like John Kabat-Zinn, mindfulness is essentially a mental technology. It actively trains the brain to exit its default survival mode, that stressed out autopilot state we so often find ourselves trapped in. By actively practicing non-judgmental observation and acceptance, we biochemically reduce the wear and tear that stress puts on our physical bodies. Now 16. That is the exact number of muscle groups targeted in Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation technique. This is such a fascinating biological hack. By consciously tensing and then deeply relaxing 16 specific muscle groups, you basically prove to your nervous system that physical tension and mental relaxation cannot biologically coexist. You're literally forcing the parasympathetic nervous system to take over, which neutralizes the stress response entirely. So, as we wrap up today's explainer lecture, I really want to leave you with a challenge for your continued anthropology studies. In an increasingly fast-paced, chronically stressed, and heavily tech-driven society, how will our cultural definition of health need to evolve next? Are we moving closer to a holistic balance, or are we retreating further into that machine metaphor? I want you to think critically about this as you observe the world around you this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive into the anthropology of health and well-being. I'm super eager to explore more with you in our next explainer. Keep questioning and stay curious.